It's no big surprise when rock stars die by certain means. Carbohydrates, protein, and fat make up the three macronutrients that supply your body with energy. Drugs and alcohol, for instance, have certainly taken their fair share of musicians from us, and so have plane crashes. For God's sake, people, stay out of twin-engine planes. Choking on one's own vomit is such a fashionable way to go that it provided one of the most classic scenes in This Is Spinal Tap, when a band member recalls that a former colleague died by choking on vomit, someone else's vomit. But a fair number of rock musicians have died in less obvious ways. Have you ever heard the one about the rock star who got killed by a hay bale? How about the one who choked on a cherry? Or the one, or two or three, who drowned? From brain aneurysms to death by ham, here are the strangest deaths in rock and roll or Hollywood. Keith Relf, electrocuted while playing guitar. Keith Relf is best known to rock music fans as the lead singer and harmonica player from the Yardbirds, the British blues rock band that spawned the careers of Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page. After his departure, the new Yardbirds went on to become Led Zeppelin. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends that carbohydrates make up 45 to 65% of daily calories via Mayo Clinic. According to WebMD, anyone getting more than 70% of their calories from carbs is on a high-carb diet, and anyone getting 25 to 30% of calories or less from carbs is on a low-carb eating plan. Still, it should be noted that not all carbs are created equal. The musician and singer also founded the group Renaissance with his sister, Jane Relf, and he had a brief solo career. Carbs are present in whole foods like starchy vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, but they are also a major component of processed foods. Relf died on May 14, 1976 in a bizarre incident at his home. The veteran musician was apparently playing an improperly grounded electric guitar in his basement recording studio when he was electrocuted. Sandy Denny, falling down stairs. Sandy Denny possessed one of the most hauntingly pure singing voices of her generation. These refined carbs, also called simple carbs, include sugars, like table sugar and high-fructose corn syrup, and refined grains, such as white rice and white flour. Refined carbs lack the fiber and micronutrients of their whole food counterparts, and nutritionists agree we should limit our intake. A study published in JAMA in 2019, however, found that 42% of Americans' calories come from these refined carbs. So, how do you know if you're eating too many carbs, especially the refined kind? Here's a look. If you're always hungry, you may be eating too many carbs. There's a reason people joke about being famished only an hour after eating rice-heavy Chinese food. She released a string of highly regarded folk albums with Fairport Convention, while classic rock fans undoubtedly remember her best from a duet on The Battle of Evermore, which made her the only guest vocalist ever to appear on a Led Zeppelin album. As Trista Best, registered dietitian, told Health Digest, it's almost counterintuitive that you are more hungry when you overeat carbohydrates. Denny died on April 21, 1978, just weeks after falling down some stairs and hitting her head on concrete. This is because the carbohydrates are digested quickly by the body, leaving you hungry soon after eating them. She also noted that if you're overeating on carbs, you're also likely not eating as much fat or protein, both of which digest more slowly and keep you feeling full longer. And as Catherine Schwab, health and wellness researcher and coach at Tons of Goodness, explained, you're likely to be hungry for the same high-carb fare you just ate. Her husband had left with their daughter due to the singer's substance abuse. Denny was discovered unresponsive while staying with a friend. She died days later from what doctors termed midbrain trauma. Born Stephen Ross Porter, the renamed Steve Peregrine borrowed his rock and roll stage name from a character in The Hobbit, then rose to fame after joining Mark Bolan in 1967 to form the duo Tyrannosaurus Rex. By 1969, Took's push to perform more of his own material, as well as his drug use, had driven a wedge between the pair, and Took was fired from the group. High-carbohydrate foods and drinks are known to stimulate parts of the brain involved in craving and reward, the expert told Health Digest. Your body tends to crave the quick energy that it gets from these high-carb foods. The solution? According to Best, curb your carbohydrate cravings and stay fuller longer with fiber-rich carbs like oatmeal or quinoa. You can also add an easy protein to your meal or snack like seeds and nuts. Eating too many refined carbs can lead to weight gain. Considering refined carbs can make you hungry, it shouldn't be a surprise that they can also add unwanted pounds. He went on to a series of short-lived bans, but never came close to the success Bolan achieved without him. Took died on October 27, 1980, from asphyxiation after choking on a cocktail cherry. Based on the energy balance model of weight control, you'll gain weight if you eat more calories than you expend, WebMD explained. And 1 gram of carbohydrate contains 4 calories. In a paper published in the journal Pediatrics, a research team led by Dr. Though he and his girlfriend had ingested both morphine and hallucinogens the night before, authorities ruled that neither contributed to his death. Terry Kath accidentally shot himself. Terry Kath was a founding member and lead guitarist of Chicago, and fans the world over have marveled at his playing on the classic 25 or 6/4 for decades. He was also a singer and multi-instrumentalist who played banjo, accordion, bass and drums. David S. Ludwig concluded that eating refined carbohydrates encouraged overeating. However, there's more to it than that. Refined carbs can also influence hormones that affect weight. He sang lead on such Chicago tracks as Color My World and Make Me Smile. Kath also had a history of drug and alcohol problems, but he died at a party at a crew member's house on Jan. As a 2019 paper published by Dr. 23, 1978 while fooling around with guns. First, he picked up an unloaded .38 revolver and put it to his head, pulling the trigger. Patrick Bradley in the journal Medical Hypotheses pointed out, the body deals with the sudden spikes in blood sugar refined carbohydrates caused by secreting the hormone insulin, which allows glucose to be used by cells but also allows any unneeded glucose to be stored as fat. Kath then did the same with a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, which unfortunately was loaded. He died instantly. Mike Edwards, killed by a hay bale. Mike Edwards had an interesting life to go along with his unusual death. Over time, the body becomes resistant to insulin's effects and the pancreas has to secrete more and more insulin, leading to weight gain. Overindulging in carbs could lead to nutrient deficiencies. Sometimes what's not in a food is just as important as what is. As holistic nutritionist Mira Desi told Health Digest, a high-carbohydrate diet, especially one that is high in processed carbs, may feel very filling for the stomach, but processed carbohydrates tend to be energy-dense, lots of calories for not a lot of volume, rather than nutrient-dense, lots of nutrition for not as much volume. She explained that by filling up on the empty calories in refined carbohydrates, people may not feel hungry when it's time to eat more nutritious foods like vegetables. According to U.S. he studied cello at the Royal Academy of Music in London before joining Electric Light Orchestra in 1972, playing with the group until January 1975. Survey cited by Oregon State University, 43% of Americans don't get enough vitamin C, 44.1% don't get enough calcium, and 94.3% don't get enough vitamin D. The prevalence of inadequacies was low for all of the B vitamins and several minerals, including copper, iron, phosphorus, selenium, sodium, and zinc, the university further explained. Getting too little of these and other important micronutrients can lead to deficiencies, which have a wide array of negative consequences. Upon departing Elo, the eccentric musician became a sannyasin of the philosophical discipline of Osho and changed his name to Deva Pramada, which means divine contentment. He lived simply for the rest of his life in various communes around the world, eventually settling in Devon, England. A lack of calcium and vitamin D, for example, can lead to brittle bones, whereas an iron deficiency, the most common nutritional deficiency, can lead to anemia. Bathroom troubles can be a sign you're eating too many carbs. How many carbs you eat can have a big impact on what happens behind closed bathroom doors, thanks to carbs' fiber content, or lack thereof. As the Mayo Clinic explained, fiber is the key to healthy bowel movements because it adds bulk to your stool and softens it. This makes it easier to pass, preventing constipation. Pramada died on September 3, 2010 on the road near his home in Devon when a bale of hay weighing 1,300 pounds rolled down a hillside and collided with his van. Les Harvey, electrocuted during a concert. Les Harvey, guitarist for 70s blues rock band Stone the Crows, died on stage in front of 1,000 fans on May 3, 1972 when he was electrocuted while tuning up for a show in Swansea, Wales. Managed by Led Zeppelin's legendary Peter Grant and fresh off 1971's Teenage Kicks album, Stone the Crows were just in the process of climbing the rock ladder when this tragic death, reportedly caused by a poorly grounded microphone, ended Harvey's life at the age of 27. The group broke up a short time later. Brian Jones, death by misadventure. Brian Jones was a founding member of the Rolling Stones, and contributed heavily to their early success. But, as time went on, he felt pushed aside by the songwriting team of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, and his growing drug problem also helped alienate him from his bandmates, who fired him in June of 1969. Refined carbohydrates, however, have been stripped of their fiber, which means they may leave you backed up if you overindulge. Even if you're eating fiber-rich carbs from whole food sources, though, you can still overdo it. According to Healthline, consuming too much fiber can cause a number of unpleasant gastrointestinal symptoms, including diarrhea and, ironically, constipation. Vegetarians and vegans are at the highest risk for over-consuming fiber-rich carbs. Jones was discovered dead in his swimming pool on July 3, 1969. In a 2014 study published in the journal Nutrients, researchers compared the diets of individuals following a variety of eating philosophies and found that vegan participants consumed an average of 41 grams of fiber while vegetarians ate 34 grams daily. Coroners ruled his death an accident. By comparison, the omnivores in the study only consumed 27 grams of fiber. When it comes to regularity, the key is to eat high-quality, fiber-rich carbs in moderation. Bloating may be a serious sign of eating too many carbs. Carbs can cause significant bloating, especially among individuals with certain food intolerances and sensitivities. Noting his alcohol and substance abuse played a role, they called it death by misadventure. Theories and rumors have swirled for decades that Jones was murdered, though despite a new investigation in 2008, nothing has ever been proven. Wells Kelly, death by partying. Wells Kelly was best known to rock music fans as the drummer in the pop rock group Orleans, whose hits included Dance With Me and Still the One. He was with the band from 1973 until 1976, later moving to keyboards. Wheat, barley, and other carbohydrates containing gluten can be particularly problematic for those with celiac disease, an autoimmune condition in which the body attacks its own intestinal cells when gluten is ingested. Such ones may experience bloating, gas, and other unpleasant GI symptoms when eating gluten-rich carbs. Additionally, a study published in 2014 in the journal BMC Medicine found that 87% of participants thought to have non-celiac gluten sensitivity experienced bloating via Healthline. According to Healthline, wheat is also a high FODMAP food. He rejoined the band in 1978 and 1979 before leaving again. FODMAPs, aka fermentable oligo-D, monosaccharides and polyols, are a group of digestion-resistant carbs that end up being used as fuel by the bacteria in your large intestine. Those with irritable bowel syndrome (IBS) tend to be sensitive to certain FODMAP-containing foods and experience bloating, gas, and abdominal cramps when they eat them. Other high FODMAP, carb-containing foods include barley and rye, legumes such as chickpeas, lentils, and kidney beans, and some fruits and vegetables, including apples, peaches, and broccoli. Even if you aren't sensitive to gluten or FODMAPs, eating carbs can still cause bloating due to their high fiber content. Joint pain can result from eating too many carbs. If you wake up feeling achy, inflammatory carbs may be to blame. He also played with Clarence Clemons before joining Meat Loaf's band. As registered dietitian Trista Best at Balance One Supplements told Health Digest, refined carbohydrates can cause stiff and painful joints because these types of carbohydrates are very pro-inflammatory. This inflammation is widespread throughout the body and specifically the joints, making them difficult to move and painful. That's bad news for the 1 in 3 Americans between the ages of 18 and 64 living with arthritis. Among individuals with arthritis, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that about 50% have persistent joint pain and 1 in 4 have severe joint pain. According to the Arthritis Foundation, refined carbohydrates are indeed one of the food groups responsible for inflammation. Just like carbs, though, inflammation can be both a good and a bad thing. Wells died in London on October 28, 1984 while on tour with Meat Loaf after a night of partying with friends. He collapsed and died on the front step of a London apartment, apparently from asphyxiation. He was reportedly last seen drinking with Huey Lewis.
Randy California. Caught in the Riptide. Randy California was the guitarist and centerpiece of the rock group Spirit, and his highly influential playing style has been hailed by musicians as diverse as Walter Becker and Jimi Hendrix, who gave the California-born Randy Craig Wolf his stage name. Among his many career achievements, many rock historians credit Spirit's Taurus as the impetus for Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. However, in 2016, a jury ruled that Zeppelin did not steal the opening chords of Taurus for their epic song. According to Harvard Medical School, acute inflammation occurs immediately after an injury and produces warmth, redness, swelling, and pain. By then, however, the guitarist had drowned in the ocean at Molokai, Hawaii. On January 2, 1997, he attempted to help his 12-year-old son Quinn, who had gotten caught in a riptide. This brings white blood cells to the area, where they can begin the healing process. California managed to push his son to safety, but could not save himself. Cass Elliot, choked on a ham sandwich. Mama. Cass Elliot shot to fame as one of the Mamas and the Papas, perhaps most famously singing lead on "Dream a Little Dream of Me," before embarking on a solo career upon the group's demise. But if the inflammatory response becomes chronic, the body becomes confused and begins attacking healthy tissue. Your love of carbs may be responsible for recurring yeast infections. Yeast infections are an uncomfortable fact of life for many women. According to the Office of Women's Health, 75% of women will have at least one yeast infection in their lives, and nearly 50% will have 2 or more. Although the gastrointestinal and reproductive systems aren't directly connected, what you put into the former can have an impact on what happens in the latter. She went on to a run of solo hits that included "It's Getting Better" and "Make Your Own Kind of Music." Elliot died in her sleep on July 29, 1974 while in London for a 2-week engagement at the Palladium. As nutritionist Lisa Richards told Health Digest, a diet filled with refined carbohydrates can create a state of bacterial imbalance in the gut, leading to a host of health issues as a result of Candida albicans overgrowth. A persistent rumor holds that the famously obese singer died from choking on a ham sandwich. Candida albicans is a form of yeast and in some cases can multiply out of control. Richards explained that this out-of-control yeast overgrowth, known as candidiasis, can cause both oral thrush and vaginal yeast infections. In an article for Intermountain Healthcare, Marissa Anderson Cardwell, registered dietitian-nutritionist, confirmed the connection between refined carbohydrates and recurrent yeast infections. But her cause of death was actually a heart attack brought on by fatty myocardial degeneration due to obesity, though the ham probably didn't help. Johnny Thunders, found in Pretzel State, New York. Dolls guitarist Johnny Thunders passed away on April 23, 1991. Though many rumors surrounded Thunders' death, it was ruled that he died of drug-related causes. She advised abstain from or reduce your intake of white flour, white rice, foods or beverages fermented with yeast, and foods containing simple sugars to help prevent against yeast infections. Is your skin breaking out because you're eating too many carbs? Unfortunately, acne isn't always just a passing adolescent phase. According to a 2014 paper published in the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology, between 12 and 22% of women and 3% of men have adult acne. The Mayo Clinic highlighted 4 underlying causes of acne breakouts: excess oil production, clogged hair follicles, bacteria, and overactive androgen hormones. The clinic noted that diet, particularly dairy products and carbohydrate-rich foods, may worsen acne. Thunders had been staying at the St. This connection has been noted in a number of studies, as revealed by Healthline. The researchers found that individuals with moderate to severe acne ate more refined carbs than those with no or mild acne. This may be explained by the effects refined carbohydrates have on blood sugar and insulin levels, according to the publication. Peter House in New Orleans, and by the time he was discovered, rigor mortis had set in. The apartment had been ransacked, with some of Thunders' possessions missing, and the musician's body was discovered underneath a coffee table in an unnatural state. Eyewitnesses reported that he was bent, like a pretzel, while neighbor Willie DeVille stated that when the body bag came out, it was in a U shape. An autopsy later concluded that the level of drugs in his system was not fatal, but it also revealed that he was suffering from advanced leukemia.
Michael Hutchence, autoerotic asphyxiation? With the undeniable charisma of an archetypal rock frontman, INXS's Michael Hutchence wasn't associated with the depression some peers felt, at least not openly. Refined carbs cause blood sugar levels to rise, thus also raising insulin levels. In turn, insulin raises oil production and, therefore, acne. Dental cavities may be a sign that you're eating too many carbs. We've all been told that sugar rots your teeth, and the bad news for carb fanatics is that there's plenty of research backing that up. But reports suggest Michael was extremely down on being separated from his daughter, then 16-month-old Heavenly Hirani Tiger Lily Hutchence, at the time of his death on November 22, 1997, in a Sydney, Australia hotel room. One paper, for example, published by Dr. Paula Moynihan in the journal Advances in Nutrition in 2016, noted that the World Health Organization's recommendation to keep added sugars to less than 10% of daily calories and, ideally, less than 5% was based largely on the connection between sugar and cavities. But how exactly does sugar damage your teeth? According to Healthline, dental plaque is actually a waste product created by bacteria in your mouth after they feed off of the sugar you consume. When this plaque builds up, it makes your mouth more acidic, which erodes tooth enamel and creates cavities. A coroner ruled that Hutchins committed suicide while under the influence of drugs and alcohol, dispelling the widespread rumor that his death was accidental and caused by autoerotic asphyxiation. But 2 years later, Tiger's mother, Paula Yates, suggested during a 60 Minutes interview that autoeroticism did cause his death, and many family members and fans to this day consider it accidental. Sid Vicious, overdosed by mom. Sex Pistols bassist Sid Vicious was to stand trial for murdering his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, but never lived to see the trial. After being released on bail from jail in 1979, a small gathering attended a party to celebrate at his New York apartment. Soda, which is already acidic, and any sugary treat that stays in your mouth a long time, such as a hard candy, are particularly damaging. According to data from a National Health and Nutrition Examination survey, 92% of Americans have had at least one cavity in their permanent teeth and 26% live with untreated cavities. Are too many carbs to blame for your brain fog? Do you feel like you spend your days in a mental haze, unable to concentrate or remember things, lacking clarity and focus? If so, refined carbs may be the culprit. In a 2013 paper published in the journal Appetite, Dr. The Rocker's mother, a registered drug addict herself, had some heroin delivered to the apartment. Heather Francis and Dr. Richard Stevenson explored the link between the Western diet, high in saturated fat and refined carbohydrates, and long-term brain health. The researchers found that such a diet negatively impacted memory, learning, cognition, and hedonics, the ability to experience pleasure and displeasure. This diet also appeared to be linked to conditions such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder (ADHD) and neurodegenerative diseases. It's important to note, though, that the researchers relied on data from animal studies and didn't examine refined carbohydrates separately from saturated fat. Additionally, a paper published in 2018 in Current Opinion in Clinical Nutrition and Metabolic Care noted recent findings showing that exposure to refined carbohydrates early in life may be particularly damaging to cognitive health. It was also noted that the hippocampus, a part of the brain associated with memory, learning, and emotion, seemed to be the most severely affected by carbohydrate intake. Depression could be a sign that you're eating too many carbs. While it may be tempting to turn to sugary treats and high-carb comfort foods when you're feeling down, these may actually make the situation worse. A 2015 study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that postmenopausal women who consumed the most high glycemic foods full of refined carbs that get absorbed quickly and spike blood sugar had the greatest incidence of depression. The researchers also found that those who consumed the most dairy, fiber, vegetables, and whole fruits had the lowest incidence of depression. Yes, refined carbohydrates may be fueling common mental health disorders. A study published in Scientific Reports in 2017 concluded, our research confirms an adverse effect of sugar intake from sweet food, beverage on long-term psychological health and suggests that lower intake of sugar may be associated with better psychological health. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, 16.1 million American adults, 6.7% of the U.S. vicious, who had been clean while behind bars, overdosed on February 2, 1979.
Population have major depressive disorder. While simply cutting out refined carbs should not take the place of antidepressant medication or therapy, it may be a helpful step. If you're struggling with energy crashes and fatigue, you may be eating too many carbs. Do you always feel like taking a nap after you eat? Your high-carb diet may be the reason. According to Healthline, carbohydrates help the body absorb tryptophan, an amino acid found in many protein-rich foods. Vicious' new girlfriend reportedly left their bed when the rocker asked for heroin and told his mother what had happened. Your body uses tryptophan to create the neurotransmitter serotonin, which in turn makes you feel sleepy. Before her own death in 1996, Vicious' mother Ann admitted in an interview to administering the fatal dose, but her confession was later brought into question. Dennis Wilson, drunk driving kills plenty of people every year, but Dennis Wilson may be the only drunk diving fatality we've ever heard of. The Beach Boys drummer's fast, volatile life was dotted with 5 marriages to 4 different women, as well as the typical excesses of rock stardom, including a serious addiction to alcohol. Side note: this means your post-Thanksgiving dinner sleepiness isn't because you pigged out on turkey, it's because you pigged out on turkey and mashed potatoes. To avoid these slumps at Thanksgiving or any other day of the year, you may want to keep your protein-rich meals relatively low in carbs. Although any type of carb can contribute to serotonin-induced sleepiness, high-sugar refined carbs can do their own special type of damage, a sugar crash. The Sanford Medical Center explained that these crashes occur because our bodies are flooded with tons of simple sugars, which in turn requires the pancreas to pump out lots of insulin. This sudden spike and then drop in blood glucose leaves us feeling tired, irritable, and shaky. But he liked to relax and get away from it all on his yacht at Marina del Rey. Wilson drowned on December 28, 1983 while diving from his boat after drinking all day. To avoid these crashes, Sanford recommended eating fewer simple sugars and finding a good balance of carbs, fiber, fat, and protein. Is your love affair with carbs to blame for your high cholesterol? The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) reported that 95 million U.S. adults have high cholesterol, greater than 200 mg per deciliter, and approximately 29 million of those individuals have very high cholesterol, greater than 240 mg per deciliter. The CDC noted that high cholesterol is a risk factor for heart disease, which is the leading cause of death in the United States. But, while dietary fat is often blamed for raising cholesterol, carbs may have just as big a role to play. A 2007 study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology followed more than 15,000 women for 9 years, plus 2 additional years for follow-up data, and concluded that those who ate more refined carbs had higher cholesterol levels and were at greater risk for developing cardiovascular disease. It also appears that the reverse is true. A diet low in carbohydrates, especially refined ones, may lower cholesterol and reduce your risk of heart disease. A 2010 study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine concluded that, after 2 years, participants following a low-carb diet had larger reductions in triglyceride levels, blood pressure, and very low-density lipoprotein (VLDL) levels than those following a low-fat diet. Eating too many refined carbs can increase your risk for diabetes. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that more than 34 million Americans have diabetes, of which as high as 90 to 95% have type 2 diabetes. Wilson was reportedly trying to recover some items he had thrown overboard 3 years earlier. If poorly managed, the disease can lead to a number of complications, including vision loss, kidney failure, and nerve damage. According to Healthline, eating a diet high in sugar and too many refined carbs can increase your risk for diabetes both directly and indirectly. He was 39 years old. Fructose, a type of simple sugar that gives high fructose corn syrup its name, can damage the liver, which in turn can lead to insulin resistance. In another odd turn of events, his drum chair was taken over on a part-time basis by John Stamos from TV's Full House. This makes it difficult for your body to properly control blood sugar levels. Eating too many sugar-rich foods can also lead to weight gain and more belly fat, both of which are risk factors for diabetes. A paper published in the Mayo Clinic Proceedings in 2015 concluded that reducing intake of added sugars to less than 5% of total calories would improve individuals' glucose control and lower risk for diabetes. But that may be easier said than done. One study published in 2013 found that 74% of packaged foods sold in the United States contain added sugar.